Let's do this. Come on, YouTube. Okay. What's up, folks? Welcome to another Tuesday, the first stream that is no longer in 2020. We're in 2021. It's supposed to be magically all better, right? Man. Good to see folks. We'll let people have a little time to get in before I start rolling on topic, but hope everybody had a happy new year. At least a safe new year. I know a few friends that spent a little too much time in their isolation and went a little too wild on themselves. Got messages the next day like, I shouldn't have done that. Getting themselves all sick. But howdy, folks. Howdy. We're gonna get this bad boy rolling. So I had this idea about talking about when you should upgrade equipment, and let me explain why I want to talk about this. Very frequently, those of us on the YouTube land talk about gear often, and it's not exclusively fish, right? Like you could get computer hardware people to talk about all the newest, latest, greatest thing, or camera people like, oh, the new fandangled whoop-de-doozle came out, whatever it may be. But in the case of like fish tanks, usually we see that new fantastic filter, or like the greatest sponge known to man, or that new amazing light, whatever it might be. And so I was thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever expressed my views directly about when people should look at upgrading their equipment. And I think too often we get in this trap. It's like, I've had people message me all the time, like, I saw your video on X, and do you think it's better than this? Or I'm going to get it now and get rid of my whatever this was. And often, like, I'll see those messages and I'm like, hey, I'm happy that I influenced you to do that, or that you think that my opinion means it's so much better. But at the same time, like, do you actually need to upgrade? And so let's talk about that, right? So I want to go over a couple scenarios. Let's talk about lights first, because I do a lot of light stuff, and there will be a few more lighting videos coming because JCMP sent me a new light to test. Well, they sent me like 3. One you can actually see right here. So my short story, my Fluval Flex, which I've had for 4.5 years now? 4 years? Something like that. I mean, a little over 4 years. The light in the hood finally died. The little built-in light. Now, I really like that light. And so I went and I looked at Fluval's part list and, found the replacement part. Because also I don't get my lid anymore in order to light this thing, right? And I quite like that lid. It helps quiet the tank down a little bit. It reduces evaporation, all that kind of good stuff, right? But I think maybe a day or two after this light went out, the light that I was expecting from JCMP arrived, their latest generation light, along with this clip-on. And the JCMP folks contacted me like, hey, we sent you a clip-on light too, and we've got a different size light coming that we also just sent you anyway, of the same type but different size for you to try. So we've got 2 of the one that I was supposed to review, basically, and then this clip-on, which now I'm testing it out, and you can see it's pretty bright. I mean, it really lights up my wall and stuff. It's kind of funny. It's hard to see on camera, but you can actually see, like, over here, there's, like, pinkish, greenish, whitish. It's prisming out from the edge of the glass. It's just kind of just a neat effect. And once it gets darker in the room, if there's not extra light from, like, my light that I use to light my face up with my webcam, you get to see, like, the little shimmer on the wall with this light, where, the other light, I don't see that. So I'm going to test this for a little while I wait for that replacement part from Fluval. And then I'll probably test it longer just because you guys know me, I like to test things for a while. And then I'll give you a little review on the clip-on light. It's supposed to be basically the same build design as the new light I'm testing, which is, I've only had on the tank for a few days, so I can't really say too much about it, but you know, I'll kind of have like an initial impressions video and then a longer term review after I've messed with it for a few months. So yeah. There's that. So like when something like this comes in, you know, when it comes to lights, you might like have a light already. Let's say you have that JCMP light, right? Or you have a Beamswork or a Night Crew, and you watched my video about the Fluval light. We know I love, love, love the Fluval light. Should you upgrade? It's a big question. So what I like to look at is a couple of things. The way that I determine whether or not I need to upgrade something, a piece of equipment, especially with my fish, is something like this. Have I changed something in the tank and now the previous equipment is not doing enough? So in lighting, this is going to be, you know, maybe I want to add CO2 and I'm using like that Beamswork light, which is kind of good for low to the very start of medium light, but not highlight. And if I'm going to have CO2, I probably need a lot more light. Well then, yes, I probably need to upgrade. Or maybe it's like, well, I'm going to completely replant this tank and I want to get better light. And before I had all these stems and all this like sores and stuff like that. And now I'm changing to all crypts. Crypts don't need a lot of light, right? So we don't want to necessarily like just bake them with a super powerful light if we're going to stay like low tech, no CO2, right? And you guys know I'm not a fan of the term low tech and high tech, just referring to, do you have CO2 or not? I think there's a big difference, or at least there should be, between low tech and high tech. So that's one way to look at it. It's like I have plenty of tanks where when I do changes to them, I will think to myself, do I need to change any of the equipment on this tank? And very often it's usually like, I'll add more fish. Do I need more filtration? Or I've made a change in the lighting. Do I need to get more flow because now I've got a brighter light? And do I need that extra flow to make sure that I don't cause some algae on the plants from the water not moving enough? Or some of these other like little things. Big questions that I tend to like are this. Is what I'm doing enough? Will that equipment change have any effect on my current maintenance schedule? And finally, do I need to spend the money? Right? This is going to cost us money. Do we need to spend the money? Or is that money better spent somewhere else? Maybe it's saving that money because I know I'm going to do another tank down the long run and buying better equipment to start that next tank. And very often in our hobby, like we'll rush to get tanks, as many tanks as possible, and we'll try to do it as cheap as possible. And I don't want to say anything negative about people who go that route. Like, I get it. I did that. Right? It was like, how can I get an extra 5 tanks? I've only got this much budget. So if I get a bunch of small tanks in a row on a rack and I get one cheap Beamswork light to light them all, I can save money on the lights, okay? Now how do I save money on filtration? Well, if I sponge filter them all and get one air pump that can do them all, that's only like $20 more than a normal cheap air pump, now I don't need filters on all of them. I just need sponges. Like I have done this. I am literally going through something I have done that I shouldn't have done in my normal philosophy. But when you're like, I need to raise extra fish or something like that, this is how my brain processed this at one point. So instead, if we fight that impulse, more tanks, for all of us with multiple tank syndrome, if we fight that impulse and go, how can I get one really nice tank in the long run? Instead of doing small upgrades to this tank, maybe what I have on this tank is good enough. It's doing everything I need. It looks good. The plants are healthy. The fish are healthy. I don't think I need to add more. What I can do is then take that money where I was going to upgrade my lighter, upgrade my to a hang-on back of a set of a sponge filter, or maybe I wanted a canister filter, or whatever that upgrade was, right? I save that money, and I make sure that that next tank starts off nicer, or has more plants to start, or more fish, or whatever it might be, right? That's one of the biggest deciding factors for me about new equipment. Money. Do I need to spend the money? And I think that's a really important question we should ask ourselves all the time, because most of us, we're always trying to look for another way to like squirrel another tank somewhere, right? It's like, well, maybe they won't notice if I set it in the guest bedroom that nobody really goes into that often, and I'm the only one that does the laundry for that room. So they'll never know, right? Like whatever your crazy scenario is, or like down in the basement, there's that spot over by the water heater. No one goes there but me. I could hide another fish tank down there for those of us who are not as lucky and have to like hide things. Now, the second thing is like, have you made a major change in the tank that necessitates a change? And this is something like, let's say we had a 40-gallon breeder, and we started it with just one sponge filter and like 10 fish, right? Well, we decided we want to add more fish. We want it to be more lively. We want to add a school of neon tetras or whatever, or maybe some zebra-danios or whatever it is. We've decided we're going to add some extra fish. Do we need more filtration now? So if we're in a case where we've got, let's say, a bare bottom tank, we're not doing plants, or we've got, our neon pink gravel and our SpongeBob hut and all that kind of stuff, right? But we want to add fish. Is that sponge filter doing enough? Do we need to add more? That's important, right? We should make sure we're being realistic for the health of our fish, or for the health of our plants if you're in different types of equipment in different things. Like if you're trying to add CO2, for example, you might need to look at, is the light I have enough to add CO2 to keep the plants happy with the CO2 injection difference, right? So that's kind of like the second question I look at is, am I doing what's necessary or slightly more than I need in order to keep everything in my tank healthy with the maintenance schedule I keep? Now here's the kicker to that part. If I were to say, look at my tank and go like, okay, I need to make a change, but not because I don't have enough filtration, but more because I need more flow, right? Do I need to buy a different piece of equipment? Do I need a different filter? Do I need a power head? What do I need? Because in some cases, we might be looking at the wrong piece of equipment to do the job. And this comes down to that cash thing again a little bit, right? Is we can get extra flow by adding more air stones. We have more air stones, we have more water moving around. And it doesn't even have to be attached to sponge filter or anything. It could literally just be an air line and an air stone. And we could change an air pump out, or add an extra air pump, like those USB nano air pumps, for example, and get extra flow without having to spend like $50 on a new filter, or $30 on a power head, something like that, right? So there's that other question of like, if I'm making a change, do I need to push one little thing a little differently because of this reason? And another reason might be, let's say we have a problem happening in our tank. Let's say that I've got this nice tank. I've got a little bit of CO2 running. I've got this bright light, and I'm getting a bunch of algae on the leaves of my plants. So usually, this is a flow issue, right? You have a strong light, but you have the other mechanics around you to where light should be okay, but there's not enough movement, so you're getting little bits of particulates that settle on the leaves, then that algae feeds off of that particulate. This is most common with things like anubias. Your very slow growing rhizome, low demand plants that are in bright light. They actually like to be shaded, but we get things like this, right? So how do we increase our flow to help compensate for that? Do we need to buy another piece of equipment? Do we need that piece of equipment? And what type of equipment does it need to be in order to do it most effectively without overspending money? Like, let's say we have that 40-gallon breeder. We don't necessarily need to go put an FX6 on this thing to deal with the flow. We could probably get away with just a cheap, simple $20 or $30 power head. Or even better, we could probably find a used piece of equipment somewhere for like $10, right? Making sure that we're doing what we need to for our fish, for our plants, all that kind of stuff, without wasting money, to me, that's when upgrades are worthwhile. Now, in other cases, you could have everything's growing healthy, fish are great, everything works fine, but that one YouTuber told me about that new shiny thing. Resist that urge. Even when it's me, when it's Corey at Aquarium Co-op, when it's Sean at KG Tropicals, like whoever it may be, if everything in your tank is doing good, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's like the most age-old rule, right? If everything is doing well in your tank, don't change it. No matter how much that like new shiny light or that new super cool filter or that whatever it may be, don't change it when everything is going good. Now, if you want to change your tank in general because they're like rescaping it, for example, that's a different story. But if you're planning to keep all the plants the same, all the fish the same, you're not messing with you're not messing with anything. You just want to change the equipment out because it looks new and exciting. Don't do it. Do not do it. Because I've had many times where I have had people that have like, hey, my tank looks really great. I watched this video. I love that Fluval light. I love what you say about it. I put it on there. Now I'm having trouble. I've got algae all over the place. And you find out that like the tank was really only designed to handle low and medium light. And they've got it at max intensity blasting light on these plants. And it's just too much light for the tank to handle. And we can fix these things and give you a light that's like really cool and does all sorts of neat stuff and can have this really cool lighting curve and do things where you can watch it at various times a day and be really excited about that. But if everything is going well in your tank, don't change the equipment. Keep it as is. Just keep doing your maintenance, feed, your fertilizer, all that stuff. No matter who it is, don't buy into the hype of a piece of equipment if your tank is doing great. Now, if you need to supplement things, we've got an example. I have a question in chat. Actually, somebody's asking me to talk them out of buying a piece of equipment. So, from Steven. Talk me out of buying a second 48-inch Fluval 3.0 for my 90-gallon tank. 24 inches tall, 17 inches in depth. It sounds like a standard 90. I have one, too. I actually want to take that 90-gallon down, as crazy as that might sound. I actually want it to be a 40 breeder because it'd be easier to maintain because it's not as tall. But here's the thing. Here's how I'll talk you out of that light. If the plants in it are already doing well and the fish are doing well, you don't need another light. You don't. If everything is healthy, you don't need anything. Now, if you have crypts that normally could stay pretty low to the ground, and they're trying to grow as tall as they can, right? Every plant you've got is reaching up as high as it can to get light, and you've got lots of like missing growth down low, but all your growth is up high as close as it can to the surface. Now we're talking about not having enough light, and that might be the reason to look at adding another light. But if everything looks healthy, if everything's doing well, You don't need to spend another $200 on a fluval light. As much as I love them, and I have honest confession. I had a friend getting out of the hobby, right? I liked the guy a lot. He was basically changing his life path, going to work on something different, and realized that he, in doing so, would no longer be able to keep fish. And a lot of his love for fish had kind of died due to some things surrounding early COVID, and he found himself in kind of a trouble where he needed some extra money. He had, I think, 8 Fluval 3.0 lights between 36 and 48 inches, which is like the dimensions that I tend to use just based on the tanks I like for rainbows. And part of the reason he really looked at it is he knew that like he could sell all his equipment, all his hardscape and stuff, and make a reasonable chunk of change. He was unemployed at the time, in COVID, needed money to feed his kids, right? Talked to me, and I was like, yeah, I don't have anywhere to put them right now, but I'll buy them. So like I have a bunch of Fluval lights downstairs that I bought that I shouldn't have, right? Because I'm not using them. This is a crazy person right here. These are the acts of a crazy person. But I know that I'm setting up some number of tanks in my garage whenever I can do it. And if I have those lights and I got them at a good price, I'm going to be super happy because I love those lights. I have had phenomenal success with those lights. And I'm going to set up new tanks anyway, so why not get the equipment discounted when I could afford it, right? Because I had some spare money, like had my tax money still like left over basically. So I helped him out by spending my money to buy toys for myself. As psychotic as that might sound. But had I known I was never going to do that, I would never spend the money because all my tanks are doing fine on the lights that they have. And there's no reason to upgrade those lights because it would be wasting money. What do I do? Sell other lights that are like Beamsworks and stuff that are like worth like $20? It's not worth it. They do what they need to do already. So that's a big thing. My advice in general, don't spend money you don't have to. Because you could put it towards something better. Giving your fish some frozen fish food more often than you do, right? Frozen fish food's amazingly good for your fish. Buying live food more often. Maybe you've got, especially now in the middle of the pandemic and human malware being the jerk that it is, go buy a little something extra from your local fish store. It's something that's simple, like add a new plant. Maybe you got room for another plant you haven't tried yet. Put that bad boy in there. Don't needlessly spend money on equipment just because it seems like it's the new shiny thing. I'm about to talk about a new shiny light in a video in probably a couple weeks, right? But at the same time, I'm going to tell you this right now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If your tank's doing well, don't go and buy a different light just because anyone, no matter who they are, YouTube, that guy in your fish club, the weird guy that rambles on the street corner, don't buy something because someone else says it. Buy it only because you actually have a real need to either change that equipment or maybe more importantly, you know that a piece of equipment's on its last legs and should be replaced so you don't have some kind of catastrophic failure. Like, let's say you've got a filter that's making all sorts of weird noises, and you know, that thing ain't lasting too much longer, even if I clean it up and do all that kind of stuff, right? That thing's about to die on me. I don't want to risk losing my fish. Now is a good option to upgrade the equipment. That way you don't have a failure and come in on a mess or losing your fish, right? That's probably the best reason to ever upgrade. So, with my rant over, we'll take questions, all that usual stuff. Hope you guys are all doing fantastic. Do as I say, not as I do. T. Miller. Yeah, definitely don't do some of the things I do. I am a mad person. I do all sorts of crazy nonsense that I probably shouldn't. But part of that has to do with I like testing the boundaries of what I'm capable of doing all the time. So, let me get some questions or some comments that I think are really relevant. There's one question I'm definitely going to get to about a 48-inch light. I will get that to you very, very shortly. I've talked Steve P out of buying a tank. Jeffro. I want to say this right now. Jeffro, it's good to see you, buddy. It's been a while. It's good to see you in chat, my friend. Last time I saw you, you were looking pretty trim, my friend. I'm just going to say congratulations. You're working hard. Doing the good work. All right. Let's see here. Lots of comments. DC Aquarinomics. Slightly hard to pronounce, but I like the name. In terms of upgrading lights, is there a metric to knowing if a certain light intensity might help plants grow, but could harm or stress annoy fish? So here's the thing that I would generally say. With rare exception, most of our fish come from the wild, where they get so much light, even in deep water, that we can really barely understand how you could ever put that much light in a fish tank. Right? Especially our top water swimming fish, they survive in insane levels of light compared to what we are capable of putting on a fish tank. So for the most part, you're not going to run into that. However, some of our like bottom dwelling fish, or some of our fish that have spent a lot of time in caves and rock structures, or come from very deep lakes, like say shellies or something like that, if they were wild caught, they're a little more likely to have some level of susceptibility to light. But if they've been raised in a fish tank, they're used to probably a relatively high amount of light. And it is very, very unlikely we're ever going to put so much light that it's going to actually hurt, stress, annoy our fish. Where we start getting intensities of light is more on the plant side, right? Where we have very low demand plants, we put way too much light at them, we start seeing all that algae growing on their leaves because they're not using enough of that light in combination with nutrients in the water, and that light helps trigger one small imbalance that algae can take over on. And typically it's something like excess phosphates or something from our food, fish waste, things like that. But it's something in combination with all that light that lets those algae start to thrive. Very rarely are we going to worry about fish. I hope that makes some sense. Because, like, I'll give you an example. On a summer day in the shade in Western Washington, which is, not the warmest or brightest state out there, the par at the surface of water, in the shade, mind you, is about 4,500 when we look at a par rating. Like some of the best lights out there, until we start talking the really crazy, like your ONF flat ones, your Twin Stars, or your UNS Titans, but like your Fluvols, for example, their pars are in the 140 to 200 range when you get 24 inches deep on a tank. Which means at the surface of the water, their par is something like 200 to 250. We're a fraction of what the sunlight is pushing on a shaded day in Seattle. Right? Like, and that's not to say we're like bright light in California or Florida with no shade, right? Where these naturally far more sun, closer to the equator, so they have longer sun exposure periods, all that kind of stuff. We're not touching Mother Nature. Not even close. All right. Make sure, I think. Which, by the way, chat, I'm so happy you guys are talking with each other so much. I appreciate that. Danny, same with fertilizer. I had a really gorgeous tank going with a ton of red and pink plants. I started adding fertilizer, then all the best plants melted away. Yeah, I mean, you can see that. You can change small changes in the balance of your tank can cause all sorts of like nightmare scenarios. Usually you can recover those kind of things, but yeah, man, you can change fertilizers or how you're dosing stuff, and plants can either thrive or they can get really mad at it. And it's usually your more picky plants if you have like your more pinky tones and red tone plants and some of your finer leaf plants, they can get really picky when changes occur. Not all the time, but some can. All right, Gary Duncan. I need a decent, cheap 48-inch full spectrum light, but narrow, please. No wider than 3 inches. Wow, that is really restrictive. Why do you need a light so narrow? See, the thing is, like, most of the cheap lights are really broad. The newest JCMP light is actually it's thinner than a Fluval 3.0. The ones that I just got in. So the same design, basically, as this guy back here, but in the long version of light. They're very narrow. And that's actually one of the things that impresses me the most about the light is how much light it pushes for how narrow a light it is. It actually is a very wide spectrum, a lot like the Fluval 3. But it's not a very wide light. I would have to, Gary, do me a favor. Gary, shoot me an email, just so that I know. I need to go measure that light, because I'm curious. If the newest light from JCMP is less than 3 inches, which I don't know if JCMP has that. I don't know if that's the dimension they keep on their website, but I can find out. We can look it up. Okay, so the new JCMP light is only 2 inches wide. I would make sure that's for the 48-inch version. I can stand to be corrected. Yeah, no, it's only 2 inches wide. Really, really narrow. So I haven't had a lot of time to test it yet. But for like I'm at like day 5 now that I've had it on the tank, or day 4. I'm really impressed overall with how bright it is. So for if you need something that's a little brighter, it's a pretty good light. That narrow is really going to limit you to also stay budget. I'm just warning you. But the new JCMP might be a good option. I can't like wholeheartedly say like it's amazing or not yet, because I just haven't had the time to test it fully. I'm still doing that. But so far, I like what I'm seeing early on. There's a couple things I need to hammer out and make sure I fully understand how they function before I like talk about them in a video. Because there's a built-in timer that's on this light, and I'm trying to make sure I understand fully how it operates by messing with it, as opposed to just what the JCMP folks have told me before I start like, basically instructing people how to use it in a video. But might be an option. Patrick, question: in the instance of a 90-gallon reference, if the light par isn't reaching the substrate, how would adding another same light watts lumens help? So, okay. Very rarely are you going to get a light that doesn't have enough par to reach at least 24 inches down. Now, if you're talking about like having high light levels of par all the way down versus like just having some light down there, okay, maybe that's the case. But when you add another light, right, there becomes an overlap where now you're getting effectively double the lumen because you're getting a light from 2 sources as opposed to just one. So you're adding wattage, you're adding lumens, you're going to add more light. And by the sheer volume of extra light where it crosses over each other from its the spread, that's the word I'm looking for, the spread of the light, you are inherently going to have significantly more light. Now, it's not exactly double. You're talking more like, probably you're getting maybe a 50% increase. It's probably more. I'd have to figure out how to do the right math for it. I'm sure, like, if I sat and played with a par meter long enough, I could figure that out. But you are getting more light inherently because you have 2 sources pushing that wattage and lumen, and where they overlap in their spread, you are getting 2 sources of that much power. It's going to push more light naturally. Rescue Dog Treats just became a member. Suda McGill, why, thank you. Ooh, you get Discord access at Suda McGill. If for some reason Rescue Dog Treats you don't like see that, you should through YouTube. Just shoot me a message and I'll make sure you get set up. So you can join the Discord if you wish to, that is. Of course, you're a saint by helping him out. I don't think I'm a saint, man. I'm buying something at a cheap price, like I'm taking advantage in a sense. But yeah, I mean, I'd rather help out a friend in need than like, I don't know, spend the money on something brand new from a store from, you know, your Amazons or whatever, right? I'd much rather do that. And just in case, like, if you actually are going to go to JCMP and buy a light, I would say be patient. Don't buy it yet. Please let me test it. But if you are going that route, I'm going to do this. I'll put this in chat for the JCMP. If you buy directly through JCMP's site, you can use that. That will give me a little bit of credit. Yes, I get an affiliate commission. You folks apparently like decided that me having an affiliate commission off something is okay. I put a big poll about that, which, by the way, if you haven't voted, love your opinions on it. It's something I care about a lot. But also, JCMP has a discount code. It's just JCP, if I remember correctly, where you get 5% off your first order. And right now, like, all their lights are 30% off for the holidays. They kept it going. I think they have it extended for another week or so. Might be a good opportunity to buy them, but if you want to wait, which I understand not waiting to get 30% off, because that makes our lights really, really cheap. But, you know, give me some time to play with the lights, and I'll give you, like, settings, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. So far, I will say, though, initial impressions, the new light is miles better than the previous one I tested. And I liked the previous one I tested as a budget option. But this is a much more powerful light, even better construction, and pretty cheap for what it gives you. Let's see here. Make sure I'm not losing some. Sean, how dare you? I'll get to your question in a sec. My chat jumped, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, good. All right, Sean, the usual question. What updates from the Shelly Superfan do I have about Shellys? I have no updates because I don't have the ability to do my garage. When I can do my garage, I will get some of a very special Shelly that only Sean knows. I had to converse with Sean because Sean is my Shelly guy, in order to know whether or not it was even possible to source this fish in the United States. And the good answer was yes. Naidu, can you control the JCMP light with the iPhone? No, it's a manual. It's built into the light. So on the cord, there's a little, basically, click button setup that you can do to time. Now, if you want to time everything with your iPhone, what I would do is the same thing I'm doing on my other JCMP light, is I would just go get like one of the, whatever smart plug you like to use. I like the Casa ones personally, the TP-Link built ones. And then I just run all my timers off that, and I just set the manual setting in the light to set it to whatever light setting I like. That's how I like to do it, and I will probably do the same with this light. I want to test the timer pretty thoroughly, though, just so I understand the pros and cons of the built-in timer that's there. But in general, I just love those Wi-Fi timers. They're so nice. Sean, my Shelly guy, sells Shellys down by the seashore. Very nice, fishy mailman. No, they're the Chevy fish. They're not the Sumbu. No. This is a very special Shelly. Very special. And by that, I don't necessarily mean crazy rare, just very cool appearance. So, from my testing so far, I don't want to talk too much about this light because I need to, like, put it in a video, but from my testing so far, I have to test how much it remembers, but from what I can tell, it should remember when it loses power. We'll see. I gotta mess with a bunch of stuff, and I gotta, like, this weekend is basically where I'm going to, like, mess with it a bunch, so that I can, like, basically create a notepad of my own notes, and then do some longer term testing throughout the next week, whatever I monkey with over the weekend, then set it up to do that. So the tank with the running river rainbows, which, by the way, they've settled in and they look freaking awesome now in the new tank. Like the main male, oh, all these reds and golds, all this stuff we couldn't see before in the previous, like, bare bottom tank. Oh my goodness, does that fish look good. Like, you know those pictures that I've shown you guys of the running river rainbows? I know I've put them up before. They look like it. It's so good. And it's not doctored or anything like that. Those pictures that are in the running river rainbow project video, they're real. They look just like that. It's so great. You don't have to, like, color enhance them at all. They're just incredible little fish. I wanted to beam about those things. Yeah. So yeah, that's I would say, like, overall, what I've looked at very, very briefly in that light, it's pretty good. But give me a little bit of time to, like, guinea pig it for a bit and figure out what I can and can't do with the light. And then I'll talk about that in my kind of initial impressions video. And then I'll do some other, like, long-term crazy testing on it over the process of a couple months. And I'll do, like, a real full in-depth test with it to make sure that I can know everything I can do and then do a nice video for it in the end. So yeah. Okay, Mike Stambaugh, one of my other rainbow buddies. Shelly question. How dare you? We're only supposed to talk rainbows, Mike. The most colorful Shelly that's the least aggressive. I have been looking at Neolamprologus similis. I think similis is probably a really good bet. I mean, Sean's going to know more than I am because he's, like, the Shelly super nerd. The particular Shelly I'm looking at, to me, is a very colorful fish, but that's more of a pattern than necessarily colors, so that might give you a hint at the kind of Shelly that I like, but they're a little more peaceful too. But yeah, I think in general, Similis is probably your best bet as far as getting a little more color than, like, a multi, but still being very, very peaceful within their own colony. Sean might contradict what I said, but I think so. From my understanding of Shelly's, I think that's your best bet. Let's see here. I want to get a question. Sean, did I send you photos after I got the walls painted? No, you did not. You must send me those. How dare you not do so? Howard's Aquatics. Or just Howard Aquatics. I'm sorry. I added S's where I shouldn't have. That's how you know I had a really long day. By the way, the last 2 days, I have had 7 hours of sleep. I have... It's not gone well for old Bentley in the sleep department, but been really busy at work with really exciting stuff, so, like, my eyes are all over the place, and my brain's starting to fry a little bit, but, you know, that's life. I have about 60 Bosemani Rainbow Fry going on 2 weeks. Yeah. My first batch. Good fish. You're getting right to the point of where they're going to become really stable. So the first 2 weeks are typically the hardest, and then at about 2 weeks is usually when you're good to switch to baby brine shrimp if you haven't already. So from there it gets pretty rock solid. You're really unlikely to lose any fish. Just make sure you're keeping up appropriate water changes, good filtration, good food, and they'll do just fine. You're going to get, like, depending on if you do pure baby brine, basically, with very little else for the next, say, 2 to 3 months, you will get color at about 3 months. And sometimes even earlier. Sometimes you get those runner boys that get big really fast. And girls, too. Girls can do it, too. And they'll start seeing that early color. I like feeding baby brine to baby rainbows all the way until, like, the 6 to 9 month mark. I look for size. Now, that's if you want to keep it up. If you want to supplement with some amount of, like, a good flake, like Extreme's Curl Flake is a great example, or something like that, go ahead. You don't have to feed only baby brine. And it's good to have a little bit of that in their diet anyway, because it helps them not turn into picky eaters. But yeah, you can feed baby brine until they're full-size adults. They'll eat it. They will hunt it down and eat it. I feed cyclops and baby brine shrimp to full adult rainbows all the time, and they go hog wild for it. Hog wild. And I will see them light up like Christmas trees after I feed them that stuff. So you can feed them all the way to full-size adults, but for babies, yeah, as long as you want to feed them, do it. Do it. It will only help you. JT Zamora, what size would you sell juvenile multi-shell dwellers? You can sell them at like 3/4 of an inch. You can sell them pretty small. When I got my original ones from a friend who basically needed me to like take care of their colony, she had bought them at an auction from our like local like shelly guru, and they were, about 3/4 of an inch in size to an inch. They were small. But they do just fine. Like, they take care of themselves pretty well. Whenever you start to see them venturing away from the shells, if they'll, like, come up to feed and they don't hide around the shell the entire time to get food whenever you feed them, they're probably fine to move on to their own tank and their own shells and be sold. But in general, I would say 3/4 of an inch to an inch, good base size. Do. Make sure I didn't miss nothing. Got lots of conversation between everybody. I like it. Critter Girl, thanks for testing for us. Appreciate all the good advice. Yeah, I mean, I do my best. Like, it's part of my career, right? So I work in test for a living, and my job is to test things. So it's just kind of one of those things where, like, I fell into my career not expecting to like test as much as I did, which is like, I work in software and hardware. I work in the IT industry. And it's one of those things where I thought like, oh, I'll work and test for a little bit and I'll give myself some experience and then I'll move on and do programming. And then I ended up like maybe a month in, just absolutely falling in love with doing test work. And now, like a decade later, is that right? Has it been 10 years? I'm really close. I'm really close to having done tests for 10 years now. I still love it. It's very different now than when I started. What I do is significantly more technical than when I started testing. When I started testing, I did like brain dead game testing. Now I do very technical stuff, working on a phenomenal product, which has recently. I'm gonna give you guys a secret. You guys ready for something? You guys wanna see something sweet? I'm gonna make sure that this won't like play audio in the background. Okay, cool. I'm gonna share something with you guys. Just for chat. Go watch this video later. Just go watch that. That's what I work on. It only recently became public knowledge, so now you guys can see what I think is the kind of technology that will eventually push into the future and become usable beyond its current purpose into really cool consumer purposes. Rico, how does everybody know how knowledgeable and helpful Mr. Singh is? It's because Mr. Singh is awesome. Why wouldn't you know? He's always helping people in chat, man. Always helping people in chat. He's like one of the ultimate fans like that. Okay. Tree 77 Bentley. I'm a 40 gal with a 207 filter. Several gourami. I'm curious what kind of gourami. Added schools of bloodfins and Von Rios. Tell me not to upgrade to the 307. Don't upgrade to the 307? So I much prefer the FX filters to the O whatever filters. And the only reason why is that all of the like the oh 06, oh 05, oh 07, they use basically the same parts. They just changed some of the canister piece to itself. That impeller is kind of notorious for having issues over time, where the FX4, FX5, FX6 are basically rock solid. They're freaking bulletproof. They're so hard to kill compared to, like, I have an FX6 downstairs on my big rainbow tank. I know that I need to service it because the last time I can recall servicing it was a year ago. And I still don't see signs coming out of that filter of it struggling. Like, I just see the base signs are like when I see a little bit more oxygen bubbles coming out of the filter than they should. And that's when I know, like, oh, it's starting to get a little plugged up. I should probably service it within about 3 months. It's been a year, the last time I can remember servicing it. And it might be, I might have done it 6 months ago. But, like, I abuse that filter. I really do. And it doesn't care. Now, part of it is there's lots of plants in there, and the bio capacity with everything in that tank is insane. It's well beyond the fish I keep. But it's one of those things where I think about it, and I'm like, I really need to service that thing soon. And then I get like crazy busy on the weekend, and I forget. I'll tell myself on a Tuesday I need to do this on Saturday or Sunday. And then I get to Friday and I'm like, oh, I have this, and I completely forget. And then the next Tuesday I'm like, I forgot to service that filter. I need to do that. This is how my brain works, right? I'll tell myself early and I'll try to plan for it. And then I'll get to the end of the week and I'll like completely change my list of priorities. It's terrible. Don't do what I do. Yeah. Oh man. Danny, I don't know if I missed your answer, but is there any effect from activated carbon in a deep substrate on plants? Not really. It will depend on the kind of fertilizer you're using, but it's really unlikely for it to have any effect. Fishy mailman. I want the mule that they designed to carry heavy gear to follow me and carry the packages for me. Oh man. Oh man. Chevy fish. Now, I'm just going to put this out there. You've actually already been incorrect. The largest fish in the ocean is not the blue whale. The blue whale is the largest mammal in the ocean. It is not a fish. But it does eat 2-inch krill despite being 80 feet long or more. So yeah, I mean, fish can see and eat tons of tiny, tiny stuff. It's incredible. The whale shark is technically the largest fish. Chad is correct. Chad is on top of this. But giving the ratio, right? An over 80-foot whale eats 2-inch food. You know, do the math there. Our 3.5-inch rainbows definitely can eat baby brine shrimp, and they do constantly. Mine will love it. Whatever I give them, the difference between like the flake food they love, extreme, right? They love that stuff. The difference between that and putting in live baby brine is night and day in the behavior of those fish. I get worried they're gonna jump out of that freaking tank when I put live baby brine in. I only worry that they're going to splash me when I put the flake in. Master Photographer, this is a cool question. Is it possible to overdose iron? And if so, what are the side effects? Most certainly can overdose on iron. So, one of the weird side effects is not the scary one. Overdosing on iron can kill your fish. Just plain and simple. But you have to put a lot. Now, the overdose that we're most likely to see is red algae. So there's a hair algae variant that is red. When we have good excess of iron in our tank in the water system, that is when we will start seeing red algae. So if you're seeing red algae, you are putting too much iron in your tank. And that's it. Basically, only time we ever are going to see red algae that is alive, not dead algae that turns red, right? Because some of the algae turn red when you kill them. The only time we're going to see red hair algae in a tank is if we have excess levels of iron. It's about the only way to make it happen in freshwater. Paul Saltaro. I guess I'm old school running an Eheim Pro 3 on my 120 discus tank. Hey man, there's nothing wrong with running an Eheim Pro 3. I love the Eheims. I have an old Eheim Pro filter that a former coworker of mine gave me, and like I just look at it and I'm like, I know that this thing hasn't ran for at least a decade, and I'm pretty sure that if I just like put pipes on this thing and filled it full of water, it'd run like an absolute champion. Because all those Eheim canisters, man, they're a lot like the FXs, is they're just built like tanks, and they run forever as long as you take care of them. Cancer Train. I have a ping pong ball sized sponge growing in some guppy grass. It's aesthetically unpleasing, but somewhat intriguing. Should I keep it or get rid of it? Dude, you have the largest Bob the Sponge out of anybody. That's way better than all my like sponges are tiny. There's like tons of them all over the place, but they're tiny. I wish I had one that was the size of a ping pong ball. I'd be so happy with something that huge. All right, so we're getting close to the end of the stream. I know that up next is going to be our good friend, Dr. Black, which I highly encourage you to check out his stream. Super nice guy, does some fun stuff. Candy took care of that thing. So what's coming up? I got a couple videos. One is going to be me screaming about the Sun, was it HW5000, the FX6 killer. And then I'll have kind of my initial impressions on the JCMP light. Like I said, I need to take some time this weekend, look at it, monkey with it some, and see a couple of things of what I can do and can't do with it before I do kind of my initial impression. And then I'll go into my long-term testing from that. Let's see here. What else have we got? I might have another Plants for Profit video coming up here soon. I have to make sure that it will work the way I want. It depends. We got some stuff going on, but yeah, there's some of that. I'll probably have in the community tab here soon a poll that'll let you guys vote on like the next video you want me to start working on here soon. So watch out for that. Lets you influence, lets you guys guide the channel. It's just one of the things I like doing. I like being able to let you guys kind of like see the list of videos I want to work on and choose which one you want first. Stuff like that. Littles, I feel like I've been losing my aquatic green thumb lately. If plants, new and old, don't seem to be doing as well as they used to, do you have any suggestion on improvement? So I would say it depends on what we're seeing. If we're seeing slower growth or some kind of issues that are nutrient based, we can adjust that by looking at how we're fertilizing and all sorts of stuff. There's lots of ways that we can kind of fix those problems. The big thing is like what the problems you're seeing are. Is it solely that they're not growing as fast as they used to? Then we might want to look like if we were injecting CO2, are we injecting less than we used to? If we aren't doing CO2, are we fertilizing different than we used to? Are we getting less light? Because like we have come out of the summer, maybe we're getting a little bit of extra ambient light from a window that you didn't really pay attention to. And now that you're not getting that much light out of that window anymore, the plants are, not photosynthesizing as much, or they're just getting slightly less light than they were able to go nuts for. Some plants go kind of dormant. And so by getting that exposure to certain temperatures or certain additional light, they just know, oh, it's no longer the summer season. I got to slow down and go dormant for a bit. There's a lot of things that can be happening. So it's really dependent on what the problem is, of which I would say shoot me an email, bentley.pasco@gmail.com. Can you just put that in chat? I'd be happy to help you out. It happens to the best of us. I've had plenty of times where I have struggled with a tank that I shouldn't struggle. Like I've got blackbeard algae that's come up in my guppy mansion, stuff like that. So we all have our issues, and it's just working through it. And we can work through it. That's the best part. We can work through it. Bottom dweller aquatics. I had to read this for a second twice just to make sure I read it right. I about got myself kicked out of Petco tonight for telling the Petco employees they were wrong 3 or 4 times in a row. They tried saying a common pleco only gets like 10 inches max. The number of times I've seen like 15-inch to 2-foot plecos and somebody's like, I only get 10 inches max. Right. Right. Oh, man. Okay, with that being said, guys, unless we have any last second questions, which we can slam one out here. I will say this. Please, please, please check out Dr. Black. He's going to be going live shortly after me. And then beyond that, like, I hope you guys are doing well. Good to see a ton of you. Little shout out to just a few people. Just a few. Only because I probably haven't mentioned you yet. I'll mention Jeffro again, though. Just 'cause I haven't seen Jeffro in such a long time. It's good to see you, buddy. Big shout out to Candy, the ultra mod, the greatest of all mods, who donates all of her time, all the time. Which somebody very nicely, Mr. Fish Sir, who won one of the $50 gift cards, sent it to Candy because he's amazing and loves Candy for being the amazing person she is. So, big shout out there. And then also, just because you've been around forever, Ginger Graves. It's good to see you, my friend. I hope we eventually get out of human malware, because I would love to meet up at a convention again, because we barely got to talk at AGA. I'd much rather sit down for a while and have a chatter with you, just because you're an awesome person. And, you know, anybody else. That goes for all of you in chat. I can't wait to, like, actually go to a convention again. I wanted to go last year, and then, you know, human malware ruined the whole shebang. But yeah, I totally want to just sit down. I wish I could just sit at like a round table with a bunch of like you guys in chat and just babble about fish for like a whole weekend. Because I would do so quite happily. I'm one of those nerds, like, the worst things can be going on in the world, and I'm going to be like, can I sit down with some fish nerds and just babble about fish for like a day? That'd be just peachy. Anyway, guys. Yeah, look forward to those next couple videos. Got a few things coming out. I got some stuff to test out. And, yeah. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Rescue Dog Treats for becoming a new member. And stay awesome. Don't spend money if you don't have to. Don't do it. Just don't. Take care.